Is the screen visible?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay, so you can see Seamus Heaney here. This gentleman over here, he was a very, very famous Irish poet. And when you look at Irish poetry and Irish people, he was one of the most beloved poets. And this particular poem, if you look at the reading history, has topped the favorite charts. You know, if you were to ask people that which is your favorite Shamus Heaney poem, this was one of them. So it's very popular and it has been anthologized quite a lot. I mean, in school textbooks and college textbooks. So he was born in 1939 and died in 2013. Now look at the title, Personal Helicon. Now, what do you mean by Helicon? Helicon actually refers to a mountain in Greek mythology. And please remember that Heaney, he was quite enamored with, he was very interested in Greek mythology. So you find references to Greek mythology in most of his works. So Helicon refers to a mountain in Greek mythology, and from this mountain came a spring. There was a spring called Hippocrene. Hippocrene. So this was the mountain in which the nine muses, Muses, muses are the gods of inspiration. So you have poetic muse, you have muse for the dances, you have muses for all kinds of arts and performances. So it was that mythical mountain in which these nine muses lived, and from which emerged the spring called Hippocrene. And this Hippocrene was supposed to inspire poetry. So this spring from this Helicon, the Mount Helicon, was supposed to inspire poetry, and the muse who is responsible for inspiring poetry is known as straight away, like the poetic muse. So now he's talking about his personal helicon. Now this real helicon is actually a myth. It is a mountain in Greek mythology, so a source for all kinds of inspiration, artistic inspiration. Now, now compared to that, he's talking about his personal helicon, that is his personal source of inspiration. That is, where does he get his inspiration from for writing poetry? Because we know he's a poet. So obviously, poets they all have different sources of influence as well as inspiration. So he's talking about his own personal helicon. So there is something very, very personal about this source of inspiration. So what is it that he's going to tell us? His source of inspiration is nothing but a series of, you could say, his experiences as a young boy, the time when he would spend looking at wells, well as in Kenner. Okay, so his personal helicon is his experiences with wells. See the lines, personal helicon. I hope you have understood the title, right? So now we're going to look at what he is going to tell us about his experiences with wells as a child and how he has carried the memories of those encounters into his adulthood and how it is helping him now to write and be a poet. So the first stanza, as a child, they could not keep me from wells and old pumps and with buckets and windlasses. I love the dark drop, the trapped sky, the smells of waterweed, fungus and dank moss. So as a child, they could not keep me. They, as in the grown-up people, that is parents and all, they could not keep me from wells. Parents usually advise children, right, not to go close to the wells and all, but then he would always go to the wells. Why? Because he was always fascinated by the wells. He loved all these things, old pumps with buckets and windlasses. Windlasses is that a circular kind of a thing, what you call kappi, like in which you wind the rope and then you put the bucket into the well, right? So that's known as a windlass. Windlass is technically any machine that is used to lift heavy weights. So in a well, it comes like a small wheel which is fixed in the middle, through which we have the rope going up and down carrying the bucket. All right. So he used to love all these things associated with the wells. I love the dark drop. Dark drop as in the dropping of the bucket. Dark, why? Because inside the well there's no light. So it will be always dark. So I love the dark drop, the trapped sky. That is, we all are experienced with how a well looks like. So when you look into the well, what do you see? You can see the sky there. And what about the sky? The sky looks trapped. It will be a circular sky and it is trapped in the well. The smells of waterweed, water plants, the smell, it has a peculiar smell. There will be fungus there and also dank moss. Moss is those all those green vegetation growing there. Dank is damp. So he loved all these things associated with any well, and grown up people could never stop him from going to all these wells because he was so fascinated by all these things. And then in the next two three stanzas he's going to remember specifically some of his favorite wells. So the first one is the generic one. In general he's talking about wells, and now in the next two or three stanzas he is going to list out specifically some of his favorite wells. So there was one well in a brickyard. It was in a brickyard with a rotted board top. Board top, as in some wells they have a roof. So the roof was kind of rotten. So it was pretty old, rotted board top. So there was a top to the well and it was rotted. I savored the rich crash when a bucket plummeted down at the end of a rope. So I really savored, as in I enjoyed the rich crash. Rich crash is that noise. The noise when a bucket plummeted. Plummet is fall into the water. When a bucket fell into the water at the end of a rope. We know that sound, right? The rope will kind of take the bucket down to the water, and with a splashing sound it falls into the water. So he used to love that crashing sound, that booming noise. So deep, you saw no reflection in it. So this particular well was very, very deep. So even if you look at it, you cannot see the reflection. Now another well, this was shallow. So the previous one was very deep that you cannot really see because the whole place appears dark. Now this is shallow, not very deep. It's a shallow one under a dry stone ditch, fructified like any aquarium. So this well, it was not at all deep. So it was like you could say near riverbeds and all, you will find places with water, right? Which would be like a well, but not very, very deep. So something like that. So near a stone ditch. So there was this ditch with lots of stones, and it looked like an aquarium. Fructified means full of maybe fruits and other plants growing there. So fructified, or you could say even productive like an aquarium, because this is not very, very deep. So you will find all kinds of maybe frogs and fishes swimming in that particular well. So it's not that your typical circular well with the pulley and the bucket and windlasses and pumps and all like that. So this is just kind of an open space with water. So it's a well nevertheless. So it looks like an aquarium. So imagine that kind of a place. And then he's saying, when you dragged out long roots from the soft mulch, a white face hovered over the bottom. So this is not the kind of enclosed like the other wells, so you can simply walk into it, you can sit there. So as a child, what would he do? He would drag out long roots, so there will be all these plants, weeds growing there. So he would pull out long roots from the soft mulch is uh, that soft mud, chili, that kind of a soft mud. So he would pull that out. So when he would pull it out from the water, near the water, he would be looking into the water, and what would he see? A white face hovered over the bottom. So he will see his own white face being reflected from the water. So two descriptions so far. So one very, very deep that you cannot see the reflection. The other one it's kind of all open like an aquarium. You can simply walk into it, see the water, and he would pull out plants from there, and then he would see his own reflection there. And now he's talking about other kind in general again. So others had echoes. So some wells it would give back echoes. Give back your own call with a clean new music in it. And one was scarcer, for there, out of ferns and tall foxgloves, a rat slapped across my reflection. So now again he is being very general in this particular stanza. So other wells they had echoes. As children, we all used to do this, right? You put your face into the well and then you scream something, you can hear echoes. So he used to do that. And when he would do that, what would you get? It will give back your own call with a clean new music in it. So the music or the sound that would come out of that echo would be much more richer and pleasing to the ears compared to the voice that you gave into it. And another well, it was scaresome. One was very scary. Why? Because out of the ferns and tall foxgloves, these are all plants, ferns and foxgloves and all. So plants growing there. This place was scary. Why? Because suddenly a rat slapped across my reflection. That is, a rat jumped across my reflection. So this was very scary. So he has given us a general idea about the kind of wells he used to frequent as a child. Some very deep, some almost like an aquarium that you can simply walk in there and pull plants out of there, and some would give echoes, and some would be scary because you have rats and other creatures there scaring you. So all this is about the past. He's talking about the experiences in the past as a young boy, how he used to enjoy all this. And finally, what is he telling us now? So this word now, it's telling us, it is bringing us to the present time. So now what is happening? To pry into roots, that is to look into the roots, to finger slime, to stare big-eyed narcissus into some spring is beneath all adult dignity. So now he is a grown-up man. So now, as a grown-up man, to go and pull up all these roots, looking for these things, things that children do, to finger slime. That is, little children they would go and put their hand in all dirt, and they're experts at that, and they will even lick and try and see what the whole thing is. So fingering slime. Slime is that uh, clay kind of mud, which the dirt, the slime that is there. So children would do all that to go and touch all that, to stare, that is to look at all these things. Big-eyed narcissus. We the story of Narcissus, again from Greek mythology. Narcissus symbolizes self-love. So this person who looked into his reflection in water, and he saw that he was so good looking that he fell in love with his own reflection. That is the story, that he went on looking at it and he died or something of that kind. There are many versions of that story. So little children are also like that. They become so preoccupied with their own selves, their own reflection, that they don't bother, or they don't know about other things. So they to stare like a big-eyed narcissus into some spring is beneath all adult dignity. Now, as a grown-up person, doing all these things, looking into roots, trying to understand, trying to plug the root, understand that, or putting your finger here and there and looking at things here and there. These things is all these things are beyond all adult dignity, because if you do that, people will call you mad. Yes or no? It's a little children who actually explore all these things, and they just don't bother about anyone. They don't care as to what others would say, right? So that way they go on enjoying all these things. But now as an adult, it is beyond all his adult dignity. He cannot do all this anymore, so he cannot revisit his childhood fascination, childhood attraction for wealth. He's not able to relive all those happy moments. So what is he doing now? I rhyme. I rhyme as in I write, to see myself, to set the darkness echoing. So I write now. And through my writings, I try to see myself. I try to remember my past, my childhood. So through my writings, I again get back, or I get to go to all these places and relive these experiences, to set the darkness echoing. That is the memories, and that mysteriousness that was there in the childhood, all coming back to me. So here well can stand for two things. One is the real well which he used to go and visit as a young child, and it can also stand for the poet's own inner mind, the inner self, into which he dives now to get poetic inspiration. So it can work in many levels. This poem, it can work in many levels. So on one hand, that is at the external level. What is he talking about? He's talking about all these wells. He's even listing them out. He's describing them. He's talking about the different experiences he has had as a child when he would go exploring the wells, and it used to be a happy time. And now what has happened? He has become a grown up man and he cannot do all these things again. There are many things in childhood that we used to enjoy, but then to do the same thing now after becoming a grown up is actually, it would be considered an anomaly. People would think we are mad, we don't do all these things, because once you grow up, the ways of grown-ups are different. You cannot be like a child exploring all these things. It's not possible. So now what is he saying? So as a result, what is he doing in order to relive those moments and those memories? He is actually rhyming to see myself. That is, I keep writing. I write to see myself and to go back to those days. So well is a source of inspiration. Again, well can also stand for the internal mind, the mind, the subconscious, the unconscious, whatever, into which he is going deep in to get inspiration. So these memories help him to sustain himself and to write poetry. Has this made sense to you?
Yes, ma'am.